Hey everybody, welcome to our AFAA Friday Facebook Live event. I'm so happy you joined us. I have an amazing person with me today, Stacey Lee Krause. She is the creator of cardio yoga, and today we are going to talk about punishment versus empowerment, because I know Stacey and I grew up in an age of punishment. That's what fitness was all about, but we're going to shift the narrative to empowerment. So I'm Angie Miller. I almost forgot to introduce myself. I'm an NASM master instructor and an AFAA mentor. And I film Angie's Tips, which are group fitness teaching tips that you can find on the AFAA blog. So let me turn it over to Stacey so that she can introduce herself and see if I missed anything.
Hi, Angie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored, AFAA, that I get a chance to speak on your platform. You were my very first certification so many years ago. But I come from a fitness chick background. As I said, my first certification was AFAA, and I was a master trainer for Schwinn and Bosu. I progressed on to more mindful modalities. I worked with Peak Pilates for a long time. And then it was only, let's see, I've been practicing yoga for about 15 years, but it was only about 5 years ago that I started beginning my yoga pathway as a teacher. So now I struggle between, am I a fitness chick or am I a yoga chick? And they really shouldn't be different, but they are these days. So that's kind of where I come to. I am a fitness chick by heart, for sure.
All right. And you know what? So am I. You know, we both have that personality where we can go at it really hard. We can teach indoor cycling. We can teach Bosu. We can teach step. We can teach all those things. But then we've got that yogic kind of mindset and that mentality of being able to settle in and kind of meditate and do all those things that are kind of more associated with yoga. So one of the things that I talk about in the description is how do we transition from burning calories to building body confidence? And I know that a lot of that has to do that with the words that we use. And that's what I want to talk about today, is changing the narrative. And that's kind of where I want to start, is how do we change the narrative in fitness? How do we go from tight buns and big guns and burning calories to just building body confidence and personal empowerment for women and men, just loving the skin they're in and having that be what it's all about? So I even did an AFAA Angie's Tips on words matter, and I talked about the power of words, like how we need to move away from things like sexy and chiseled and tight buns and big guns, and we need to think about how we're feeling intrinsically versus how we look extrinsically. So where are you at with that?
Well, you know, Angie, I had a really big shift. I was living in New York City in 2001. And, I was there during 9/11, and I was there on September 12th. And our gym was packed. You know, I worked at Equinox on 19th Street and Broadway. So we were right there in the center of it all. And people came to the gym, but they certainly didn't want to be beaten up. And that was really a critical shifting moment for me, because it wasn't about, at that time, for at least 3 months. When people came in, there was no way that I was going to push my students hard. You know, this should burn, this should hurt, no pain, no gain. I didn't say any of those things. I really needed to be aware of how I was speaking to my students, because they were just there to feel whole and to feel healthy. Nobody at that time was coming to the gym to burn one extra calorie. That was not the point. It was about well-being and breathing and truly feeling whole and healthy. And I think that's where it all began for me. And I started looking at everything so much differently. You know, it's fascinating to me even now. So it's 20 years after 9/11. And even now, you know, the word that kills me, the word that stresses me is when I see that a workout is about getting slayed. Like, I'm going to slay this, or I'm going to kill it. You know, I just don't understand that mentality. But it's where the fitness industry was born. It was born with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was born with Jane Fonda, and it began with something that was very, very superficial. And the word superficial has a negative connotation, but let's face it, that's where it began. Arnold wanted to get huge, and he wanted to win, and Jane just, she wanted to look more amazing than she already is. Than she
Yeah.
right?
And she still does, doesn't
She
she?
still does, right?
Well,
I guarantee you that Jane Fonda's workouts don't hurt her anymore, but it was conditioning from the very beginning. And unfortunately, we stayed with that conditioning. What doesn't kill you will make you stronger. And that conditioning has been perpetuated. And we can even see that in the yoga community, because what does yoga look like on social media? It looks like party tricks. So, when I meet new students and I invite them into my yoga classes, they say, "Oh my God, I'm sure you would kill me." And first of all, I'm like, it's yoga, and they're like, "Well, I can't do I'm not bendy. I get afraid when I go upside down." And that's the opposite of what yoga really is.
It really is. And you're right. There's just been this foundation that the fitness industry laid, and it feels like we can shift away from it, but only if we're in yoga, or only if we're in Pilates, or only if we're in a stretch class. But then we need to go back and beat ourselves up again, right? And we can't seem to move away from that. And yet you and I were talking this week, and I said I taught a sports psychology class. And that's when I had to really delve into the research. And a lot of the research supports that when we're talking about exercise adherence, we are not motivated by exercise long-term that kind of beats us up and kills us. There's a small segment of the population that is motivated by high-intensity, hard-driving exercise. But really, it's moderate to low-intensity exercise that helps people, that drives people to keep coming, exercise that makes them feel good, that doesn't make them hurt for days on end, and doesn't make them loathe their body because they didn't get the results that the infomercial promised.
That's right. Isn't it amazing that, when I have, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, Angie, you have a new student in class who comes to you, say, the second week, and they're like, "Oh my God, last week's class was great. I was so sore." And whenever anybody says that to me, when they say, "Oh my God, I was so sore after your class," I cringe. And they're like, "What? I was sore. My butt was sore and my quads were sore." That was not my intention, to make you sore. I teach a majority of moderate intensity classes. Now, if a brand new, particularly unconditioned student or deconditioned student is sore, well, that's as a result of doing something new. But my intention, excuse me, is not to make people sore by any means.
Right. The intention is really just to make people feel mindful about their body, make them feel good about the skin they're in, like we said, and make them realize what they're capable of. And sometimes, absolutely, that results in soreness. Absolutely. But that isn't the overall driving goal is, for you right now. And that is the goal in some classes for certain. Like we were saying, we really haven't completely moved ourselves away from this foundation of, drive them hard, make them sweat, kill them kind of thing. But you were talking about post 9/11, and it really, you can't compare the two at all. There will never, that's not at all where I'm going with this, but what this pandemic makes me think about is how people are going to return to the gym. And again, I'm not trying to make a comparison to 9/11, but what I am saying is that anytime that there is something that affects us all very, very deeply, emotionally, physically, affects our families, our jobs, and our livelihood, we are going to show up differently to the gym, and that's going to impact the way that we want to move and the messages that we want to hear from our instructors.
Well, I think that's, the reason that I do think it is time for us to consider possibly 9/11 in comparison to what's happening now. It was the last time that as a country, now even as a global community, we were facing a massive trauma together, right? Where we can look at each other and almost have the same thought happening at the same time, right? We're all in the similar playing field. Now, that was a very different time because people wanted to join together. I think now what we are facing is, and I'm hoping that this is what we're facing, is that so many people are now recognizing the need to get healthy. I know of at least 5 people that have come to me during this COVID stay, this staycation that we've been on, and said, I need to start working out. I realized the people who are managing better through this traumatic time are those that are healthy. I really need to take a look at how I'm eating. And, I realize that I'm under a lot of stress, and that puts me at greater risk because it's lowering my immune system, so all of these things. But at the same time, for example, I've got this one client right now who I went to high school with, and she came to me because with this reason, I think it's time for me to get fit. I put it off far too long, but I'm so afraid because I'm so unfit. I don't even know where to start, And so I think as a fitness community, if we could consider that moderate intensity workouts have a place and a time right now. Now is the time for us to bring people in and say, work out, be healthy. It's not necessarily, I think leading up to this point, anybody who wanted to work out wasn't necessarily exercising to be healthy and fit. They were exercising to have a great butt or to have great abs. They were exercising because bikini season is coming. It's so superficial. But this is an opportunity for us to really encourage the overall health benefits. And that's just not physical. That's mental and emotional. That comes from, being fit and healthy, from feeling good from the inside. But we don't necessarily feel good when we're feeling defeated in a boot camp class, when we're feeling sore for 3 days, when we're wondering, how are we going to get to the top of the leaderboard? I will never get to the top of the leaderboard. I don't know that that's the emotional support that we can, as fitness professionals, provide to our students,
Yes.
in a group setting.
Well, and it's true, it's funny because after filming The Words Matter, I had to come back to it, and I'm recently working on an AFAA blog about emotional intelligence. And I just want to talk about this whole thing, but from a different perspective of what is emotional intelligence. What does being empathic mean? What does it mean to connect to other people and meet them where they're at? What does that look like in a group fitness room? And that is, standing in front of a group of people and recognizing that there's a wide range of emotions and tapping into people's emotions, because really fitness is an emotional experience. But it's not super emotional if I get on a treadmill and I run side by side next to you. There's not really any connection. But if I show up in a class next to you, there's an emotional connection. And that's kind of what we're creating in this group environment. And I think that ties so much into, being emotionally intelligent also ties into tapping into where people are. And that means body image, how they feel about themselves. And one of the things that I talked about was, body image and what's kind of happened in the fitness industry because of this whole drive it hard, push it, go to your extreme. What's happened with body image? And I can't speak, I'm not a man, but I know what it's done to a lot of the women that I know and how our body image has been affected by what the fitness community says that we should look like.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I think we've done quite a disservice to the body image, let's say, area, because we've kept fitness as a superficial. What am I trying to say here? We have allowed fitness to remain in the superficial realm for so long, where it is so much about how we look, and it's perpetuated on social media, in all our advertisements for whatever the fitness program is, and the benefits that you're going to receive. I mean, every single program touts how many calories you'll burn, and get buns of steel and have great abs and tone your whole body, and so my program, Cardio Yoga, is based loosely off of a program called the Willpower Method. And the Willpower Method is really about tapping into emotions and movement. And, I had kind of a VIP. I'm living right now in Denver. I had a VIP come to my class one time. And she's like, that was just such a beautiful and amazing experience. I don't know that I'd ever take the workout on a regular basis just because it's not hard enough. And I sat there and I was like, Wow, really? And she said, well, I listened to you and I did all the level 1 exercises because I was in your class for the first time. And I said, okay, well, you're a seasoned athlete. So, I think if you were to come back to class, I would offer you level 2 and 3. But then I found myself immediately kind of backpedaling and compensating by saying to her, well, you're an athlete, so let me show you how to make it harder. Where actually the workout is meant to be moderate intensity, and it is a deep connection between cardiovascular fitness and the yogic pathway. And the 8 limbs of yoga, the physical aspect is only one of the limbs, right? It's more about breath work. And in fitness, how often do we talk about breath work? Is that in the forefront of what we're trying to do? And how often do we talk about thoughts and emotions? Because in fitness, the emotion is either, rah, kill it, are you going to win? Are you going to get to the top of the leaderboard? Come on, I'm being champion. Or it's woo, the party. And life's not just always the party. Like, I don't always go into the gym feeling like I want to go to a party. Right. I just maybe want to move and breathe and be in my space and, sometimes cry. On September 12th, one of the most beautiful things is, the room was filled, and people are doing crunches and crying their eyes out. And it was absolutely beautiful because they needed an outlet, and that outlet was safer than, say, their kid's soccer game. So that really is where the physical body and breath work and emotion and thoughts come together. And for me, that's where fitness becomes really healthy. And then body image is not even in that equation.
Yes.
What your body looks like. I don't care the size of your belly or your boobs or your butt or your arms. If you want to get toned and feel better about yourself, then that's a personal goal. But that really has nothing to do with what I'm teaching right now.
And you tapped on something perfect, because that's exactly right. Body image becomes superfluous when really the language that we use completely engages the mind and the body as just a beautiful thing that's connected to the experience. Then no one is thinking about body image because we're just in our mind and we are present to the experience. And so I like to make this information totally transferable. I don't care if you're teaching kickboxing. I don't care if you're teaching indoor cycling, because those are still amazing formats. And I'm not going to lie, I still love to do them. I got on my treadmill and I ran today, and I was not happy till I met my goal. So I've got that side of me for sure. And that's not going anywhere, right?
Sure, absolutely.
But here's the thing, the messages that I tell myself and the things that I say to myself are so much different. And some of that is just age, and it's just more loving kindness toward myself. It's also a personal transformation. I remember the point in my life when I stopped using language like, 6-pack abs. And it was really when my mom passed. And it was really when she passed from dementia-related disease. And I realized, sorry, but to hell with 6-pack abs and to hell with skinny jeans. I want to remember where they are. And I want to keep my cognitive health, and I want to keep my emotional health, because that ties into longevity, right? And so I don't want to live long. I just want to live well. So if we think about, how this is transferable, I always, I want to come back to words for a minute. And the kind of words that we use, no matter whether we're teaching kickboxing or whether we're teaching yoga. And I think that those are highly transferable. So I think about things like, instead of moving into, come on, you guys, I know you ate a lot when you were at home during shelter in place. Let's get rid of those 15 pounds. How about things like, I use ing words. I took a beautiful yoga workshop and we spent like hours just coming up with ing words, present-centered words that were very mindful related. So things like lifting, opening, inviting, reaching, extending, accepting. And so all these words that we were saying, the ing words, all throughout the experience. And it was the most amazing thing. And I find myself using it even when I'm teaching like a total body conditioning or a weight training class.
Absolutely. Well, being in the present moment is the healthiest place to be when it comes to kind of molding and redeveloping our personality, right? Because most of us live in the past, in these past experiences, and we live in these loops that have conditioned us. I am this way because of this thing that happened a year ago or 3 years ago. So therefore, I have an injury and therefore I limp, or I'm not strong in this sense, or a fear of the future, right? We're struggling between the past and the future, whereas the ing words keep us here right now. And if we choose to use those positive words, our body doesn't know the difference between a past memory and a future thought or a present moment. It doesn't really know. What it knows is what we're flooding our system with, okay? And if we're being absolutely positive and loving and peaceful and supportive in this moment and inspiring, like reaching, inspiring, exhaling, then we are directing our entire neural system in the direction that we want to go, which is positive and uplifting and healing.
Yeah. So when do you think, so I love the words that you just added, the ing words. I feel like we could go all day with those. And I really find that those are so transformative. I feel like when I start to use language like that, it's almost like a trance that people come in and they really come inside of themselves. And so one of the things that I think about is when we make this transferable to any fitness environment, I think about, because, people might say, well, how do I use a mindful yogic practice in a kickboxing class, or how do I use a mindful yogic practice in a indoor cycling class? And I always think in terms of warm up and cool down, beginning and endings, because we really remember beginnings and endings, right? They stay with us. What do you think about?
Well, my cycling classes, that's one of my favorite places to bring in kind of emotional fitness, right? Setting up a narrative throughout the entire class. A class theme that I've always used was psychology with a C. And in my willpower method or cardio yoga program, we have a word of the week calendar. So I would come in every week with a theme word, and my students were ready for that, right? And it was just this added layer that we would take into the class, that we still continue to take into the class. For example, the word this week is surprise. And that's a really fun word to play with. It's fun, right? So the whole class kind of feels fun. It allows me to bring them surprises in terms of physical drills, to bring surprises in terms of what the playlist might sound like, or set up a narrative like, well, surprise yourself today, and what does that look like? And then you have the opportunity to then steer your students into a place that is maybe not as competitive for the whole class, surprise yourself. Let's see if you can keep yourself at 65% for the next 4 minutes and be calm with that and be okay with that, or, whatever your particular goal would be. But actually building a narrative from the beginning of class, taking them through an entire narrative and then closing with, and in the closing, reminding our students what they did today. I don't know about you, Angie, but for years I was like, oh my God, you guys, thank you so much for coming. You made me feel so good by coming today, and I'm so glad to have you all here. This is not about me, the instructor. This is about you as the student, right? So, if we're able to, in our closing, wrap up with, hey, you guys, wow, you did such a great job today. For the past 45 minutes, you've been surprising yourself. You've worked strong, you've been committed, you were breathing deeply, whatever your summary is, but reminding your students what they did. So this way they walk away feeling accomplished.
Yes, because it's about them.
Oh my God, guys, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. Pat.
Today, and I hope you like this playlist. I mean, we all do it, right? Because we all want our students to have a good time and to come back. And I think instructors have a slightly egotistical sense because we are in the front of the room and we're leading it. And I think we'd be lying if we say that we don't. But we're all there for the same reason. We really are there to help our students and to help them feel empowered and inspired. But the closing is really a place, just like when we give a presentation. I know you've given 1,000 or more presentations, Angie. You know that presentation 101 is that we start off with a workshop saying, okay, today I'll be teaching you A, B, and C. And then we get into the content. And then at the end of the presentation, we say simply, so I hope you had a wonderful experience today. In debrief or in summary, let's go over what you learned, A, B, and C, right? And that helps us as the presenters wrap up and remind the students that we did our jobs, right? But it also allows the students to walk away saying, oh yeah, that's right, I just learned this. And I think we could take this same presenting skill and apply it to presenting a workshop or a workout for our students to remind them of what they did, which will empower them, in a mindful approach.
It's almost like giving them deliverables, but the deliverables are their own personal deliverables. You're reminding them of what they gave to themselves. So again, it's always about giving it back to them, always about empowering them. And I love the word of the week. I love the surprise. I love that you can take a word and you can invent an entire narrative around it, continue the theme throughout the class. And I even thought, to have each student reflect on a time in their life where they were surprised. Remind them of their own stories, because now they're making a personal connection from something in their life that was positive to this class. And it's like music. Music evokes memories. If I listen to AC/DC, I'm back in, I'm not going to say because then you're going to know my age, but let's just say I know every word. And it takes me back to a place that I used to be, and it automatically evokes those memories. So I love that word. Give me another word that you use that you've had for your word of the week.
Let's see. Well, next week is reach. And the reason that I'm telling you reach is because I just finished scripting some instructor education around the word reach. And what I love about the word reach, right? Because then when you take a word, you need to explore. I'm an English major. That's where I come from. So I live in the world of metaphor. And, when we look at the yogic model, the yogic model really is a little bit more metaphoric. It's less physical and more big scale. So when we look at the word reach and all the applications, reach is a noun and a verb, so you could use both. Okay, so it gives you a lot of play there. But you can arrive at a destination, and that typically gives you a sense of gratification, right? I reached my destination, or I reached a new phase in my life. Okay, so you could arrive at a destination. But reach is also quite physical, right? I reach out my hand to you, or I reached for something on the high shelf. So it allows me to speak to the movement quality, reach a little longer. Let's talk about range of motion, guys, today. Okay, I'd like you to reach from fingertip to fingertip. So we can be very physical and get some better movement quality from using that word. But then we can also say, reach to your highest potential, or what would it feel like for you? Close your eyes and, as you're moving, as you're holding plank, as you envision the goal that you set for yourself, think about how you're going to feel when you reach that goal, and giving a place where people can just be with themselves. So I use the word reach a number of different ways and in a number of different places, but it's a nice theme to keep coming back to. And I think that resonates with people as well. It helps me, at least, organize my thoughts. And I mean, my God, how many different ways can we teach a burpee?
Yes.
Are we going to really reconsider a burpee in 25 different ways every single time we teach? And it's true, our students do expect something fresh each time they walk in the room, because we've set that expectation. Each time you come in, we're going to give you something new. And that's fair, because each day is a new day. But we also have to realize, just like you said earlier, Angie, that everybody's going through a different emotional experience. And if you see your students on Tuesday, next Tuesday, they're going to be in an entirely different place. So that very same burpee, they don't necessarily need a new version of the burpee to help them feel whole.
Right. And that's what this is really about, is just taking, that's why, that's what I'm gathering that you're using this word imagery, is because you're changing the narrative of the whole fitness experience, and you're making it personal to each person. It's one word, but it resonates with each person differently, and their experience is different because of that one word, because it's tapping into their own personal psyche and their own experiences, their own range of motion, whether it's physicality or whether it's emotionality. So I love that. And that was my goal for today, was to say that we don't have to be teaching yoga to bring empowerment into a fitness experience, to change the narrative from punishment, to change the narrative from beating each person up to how about just allowing each person to go at their own pace. And if they want to go moderate or they want to go low intensity or they want to go hard driving, they can still use the word reach differently. They can still use my ing words differently, and they're going to resonate with each one of them in a different way. But the bottom line is hoping to get away from chiseled and sexy and lean and all those words that I've been guilty of using over the years. But since I changed my own personal narrative, my feelings about my body and my feelings about what I do physically are so much different. I go in with an intention of loving kindness and support and wanting to feel better, not with this, I ate too much last night, so now I need to go work out because I need to pay the price. It's really just, I've lost that wind that used to blow me to the gym for those reasons, because I would almost show up at the gym almost agitated or like I had to be there. And now I show up at the gym like, I can't wait to have this experience with myself and to walk out and have that sense of body confidence transfer into everything I do and make me feel confident at everything that I do in life.
I think that we need to be absolutely, if we can transform everyone, all of our clients to feeling the way you do, that would be absolutely amazing. But you're very, as far as I know, very comfortable with your body. You're an athlete. You're at least a fitness athlete, right? So you know your limitations. You know how to set goals for yourself. You know what feels good, and you know when you've had enough. I think what we need to do is change the narrative as a fitness community, as coaches, trainers, and leaders, so that, you know, the no pain, no gain narrative just dissipates. Just, you know, whether we're teaching a boot camp or even HIIT training. I mean, high intensity interval trainings, I love that workout. But what we're telling people is this workout is going to burn the maximum amount of calories for you. I'm going to deliver you today a protocol that was established on Olympic athletes. Ready? Go! And this is really good for you. And I think we still have an opportunity to train people efficiently and effectively in a HIIT training format, but it is really changing the vocabulary and the narrative during that time. You know, there's a very fine line because we watch our students slack, and I think that's where we struggle. Like when they're slacking, we're like, no, don't stop. You got to keep going. You've only got 30 seconds. Keep going. Now, how do we tweak the words at that point so that we don't allow them to feel as if they failed, you know, for not finishing up their 30 seconds? Because let's face it, if we don't drive them, they're not going to do it. That's why they pay us the big bucks.
Right.
And, you know, so there's the creativity. In my experience, though, Angie, and tell me if you feel any different. In my experience, every trainer and every instructor that I've ever met in my life is, okay, maybe every, is for the most part right brain dominant, a creative person. Okay, and we can think very logistically. However, we have this creative edge to us. We want to be creative. We want to find creative solutions. Working with people is not always a left brain, you know, process. It's a right brain. We have to find solutions. And I think if we can, as a community, find the narrative or the dialogue in, okay, how do we keep them working hard through inspiration, you know, without disparaging and without that punishment ever, you know, then we'll always have full classes because people won't be afraid to take a class. To have somebody tell me that they were afraid to take a yoga class with me because they were afraid that I would kill them, you know, makes me wonder, you know, where are they learning from?
Well, you know, and that's true. And I think that that's why I really wanted to touch on this topic, was because for us, we're never going to say don't do the hard driving workouts, but we're saying, what if we invite some different language into those workouts? So, when we see our students lacking, what if we say, don't forget to invite the best that you've got to this party, or, don't forget, it's about inviting, it's about accepting. It still is about language and words. And it's about, one of the things that I said in my Words Matter was, try not to use negative words. So, hey guys, don't stop. Never do that, whatever it is. If we start a motivation out with a don't, we're probably not going to be very motivating. It's like when our kids are little, and if I would say, don't touch that, or if I tell my dog, don't go in there. But if I reinforce with positive reinforcement, they're going to learn to love themselves and appreciate themselves and have more confidence that they can figure things out. And that's really what we want our people to do. We want them to gain confidence in themselves. And our dirty, dark secret is that people don't really need us. We're here and we can inspire them and we can teach them and we can lead them, but they can be fit without us. And that's my goal, is to say to them, I used to say in my indoor cycling class, I used to say, I'm the DJ, you're the driver. So, I've got the music, but you're in charge of your game. And so I'm going to inspire you and I'm going to ask you to give it your all. But at the end of the day, this is your responsibility. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. And I always want to give people their life, give people their mission, give people ownership over the experience, because ownership is really what makes us have skin in the game. It's really what makes us want to push to our limits.
I would venture to say, though, Angie, respectfully, I think people do need us. I really do. I believe this with my whole heart. I mean, I have mentors and coaches in my life who I need. Did they tell me how to run my life? No. But I think people need people, yes. Right? I think they need us as the motivator. And if we can shift our motivation to always being the guiding, inspiring light, I think that we can, be the change. Because we do need each other. Mm-hmm. You inspire me, Angie. I mean, I've been watching your work for a long time and you inspire me. Do I need you? Yeah, I need people around you to keep me going, right? Not to keep me competitive necessarily, right? That's just not how I live my life, but to be able to look to other people and say, yeah, I want to be more like her. We need inspiring people around us. What makes me sad is for those students who feel like they need the coaches that are driving them into the ground, because that is perpetuating social conditioning, that is hurting us, right? The negative reinforcement. As we're making this global shift, we're trying very hard to, we've got these two opposing forces right now. And considering that the fitness and health, the health and fitness industry should be the light force, should be the uplifting life force. I think the world does need us. I just think we need to really take a very careful look at how we deliver our material. Because I also haven't met a coach or a trainer or an instructor who hasn't wanted to be a light force in the world.
Well, and that's a great way of putting it. And it's kind of like, I have two daughters and I want them to need me, but not to need me. You know what I mean? I want them to know they have the tools to do it on their own. But of course, we always need one another. And that's the way that I look at fitness. Of course, I want to know that I'm needed, because don't we all? But I want them to know that even without me, they've got all the tools that it takes. But isn't it wonderful that I'm here to go with them on their journey? So if we were to kind of sum this up and we were to talk about bringing these practices into indoor cycling or kickboxing or whatever it might be, I had mentioned that I think in terms of warm up, and you talked about, that's where you talked about setting intention and having a word of the week. And I think that's phenomenal. I absolutely love that. And then one of the things too is at the end in a cool down, I don't care what type of class it is, I don't see any reason why we can't use some type of guided meditation or maybe a progressive muscle relaxation. I often will use progressive muscle relaxation, Or I'll just use, I'll look up a phrase or something from The Power of Now or from a recent book that I'm reading, because I always like to leave my class with takeaways. And every time when people talk about my classes, they don't talk about the content. They always talk about the messages. They don't remember how many burpees I did or what my step pattern was, but they always talk about that the one thing they never want to do is they never want to leave before my cool down, because that's when I sit and I give my Angie's tips, my words of wisdom, which are really just things that I pull from materials and books, and I leave them with takeaways because I want them to go home and sit with that all day long and mull that over and have that thought be the connection to my class. So I want my class to go with them all day long, like the Energizer battery. They don't just continue to burn those calories that they're so worried about burning. They continue to mull over this intentional message that I left them.
Yeah, I think bringing quotes and passages from other sources is a great way for any personality of a coach to enhance and make your workout more mindful, for sure.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you do, something that you want to talk about, that any kind of meditation or anything that you do that has really, really helped you to kind of draw this bridge? I know one thing you mentioned that it's only like the past, I think, 5 years that you've really been on this yogic journey. And if you don't mind, before we go, I'd love to know what inspired you to do it.
Well, I've been a student, as I mentioned, a yoga student for a long time. I started teaching a number of workshops. I was invited to India a number of times to teach my foot fitness workshops and the willpower method as well. Being in India really inspired me, because I met a culture that I was very much outside what I've ever known. So I started taking classes in India, and what I realized there was that yoga was very different than anything I had experienced here in America or even in Europe. In India, a yoga class could mean sitting in pranayama and meditation for the good part of the class, and that is still yoga. So understanding that was the beginning of my understanding of the kosha model, and meaning that the physical body is just the vessel, which we've heard this before, but the most exterior part of who you are. And breath work, pranayama, I thought that was just air in and out, which is actually very critical right now. We have to help people breathe. But prana is your energy force. What are you taking in? What are you holding on to? And what are you willing to release? That literally changed me physically, chemically, neurologically. I came back as a new person. And then going even deeper into the kosha layers, there's a layer called the manomaya kosha, which is this beautiful combination of intellect and emotion, and you have to move through the outside layers to get to the inner layer. And once you start considering thoughts and emotion, then you move past that to a layer that is the wisdom to look at your thoughts and emotions. And when I understood this whole of yoga is the word yuj in Sanskrit, and the word yuj means to yoke, to harness all of these parts. Well, then it basically takes the physical body right out of it. And once I tapped into that piece, I just don't even know if I can ever go back. I mean, so I do call myself a yogi now, but I teach physical exercise. So I'm a fitness chick. I teach physical exercise as a pathway only, as a vehicle to help people move into their breath and into their thoughts and emotions. So that's the place that I live now, rather than bringing mindfulness to movement. It's really about using movement to move, because that's your tether point, right? When we meditate, we typically look at a candle, or hum as your tether point, right? As a drishti, as a focal point. Well, most of us here in the US, we need to be moving all the time. How many times have you heard people say, I would love to take yoga, I just can't slow down that much yet? So if we use physical exercise if we use physical exercise as our means to tether and pull into breath and thoughts and emotions, this is a real turning point. I think this can be a turning point for a lot of people because it really has nothing to do with buns and guns.
I love it. I think that that's great. And I really did want to hear about Bernie. I think that that's amazing. And I think that we don't have to be yogi yogas to set intention at the beginning of a class, to use words that give our class meaning and change the narrative. And we don't have to be a yogi yoga to end with some kind of message that stays with people and resonates with them all day long. So that's really what I wanted to do today, was just to share that I think that if we can move away from punishment and we can move into an empowerment, and we can take some of those yogic principles and some of those things that you and I have learned along the way, and so many of us have learned along the way, and bring those into the fitness world so that it's a kinder place, so that it's a place that encourages more loving acceptance and just being good with the person that we are, but wanting to feel better, not look better. So Stacey, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here, because I just absolutely love your work. And I really appreciate you as a person. Stacey and I met some years ago at a convention, and we ended up in a shuttle going back to the airport together. And I did a little soul cleansing, and Stacey picked up my soul and then gave me a few uplifting words, and it always felt good. It was just that automatic connection. And that's what we do for people. We can just say a few words of understanding and empathy, and then the next thing you know, it's a lifelong friendship. So thank you again, and thanks to everyone in the AFAA community for joining us. Let us know if you have any questions. This does stay on Facebook, so you can always watch it later. But thanks to all of you. Take good care. Be good to yourselves, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.